So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Johnson accused of suicidal treachery over undermining Sunak over the Northern Ireland Protocol negotiations, the tweaks. So this is pretty bold here. Grandee is normally a really senior person in the party. So Johnson and his allies have been accused of, quote, suicidal treachery, end quote, by senior Tories for threatening to wreck Rishi Sunak's bid to thrash out a new Brexit deal. And again, it's not a new Brexit deal, it's just tweaks on the existing deal. Journalists really need to sort their stuff out here. Johnson has been telling the DUP to resist the tweaks that Sunak is trying to get. He's accused of undermining his party leader and the Prime Minister. If Sunak had guts, he'd remove the whip from Johnson for this. You can't have someone undermine you, especially when it comes to stuff like this. Former Tory Foreign Office Minister Sir Alan Duncan said the Conservative Party face, quote, oblivion at the next election unless Mr Johnson and his supporters called off moves to sabotage the PM's plans for the new arrangements for Northern Ireland. Tobias Ellwood and other senior Tories warned that Johnson was deliberately scuppering Tory election prospects for personal gain, with ex-Chancellor George Osborne claiming ex-Tory leader Johnson was exploiting the protocol row in a bid to bring down Mr Johnson. And what you can see here is some Tories concerned about their election chances, and it really shows you that they are more than happy, I think, to put party above country here, because they're just worried about losing their own seat, which is just shameful. But, you know, what George Osborne said, you know, he's not in politics anymore, not really. It's quite interesting that he's seeing Johnson using the issue of Northern Ireland, the protocol, to kind of use that as a way to engineer himself back into the number 10 spot, which I don't think he's fully doing. You know, Johnson is using the situation in Northern Ireland for political gain. This situation can get toxic really quickly. Johnson and the DUP are risking the Good Friday Agreement, and the things that allowed the Good Friday Agreement are not in place anymore. They're burning through a lot of goodwill here. Johnson has warned that dropping the Northern Ireland Protocol bill, which would empower the UK to unilaterally scrap parts of the protocol, would be a, quote, great mistake. The legislation will, in my opinion, will only make things worse. It will lead us into a trade war that we'll lose. This legislation has been moving through Parliament for months now, since last June, and got no breakthrough. Only when Sunak gave access to the live data did we see movement. Johnson and his hardline Brexit backers are, quote, detached from reality, end quote, said Sir Alan Duncan. Mr Sunak was merely trying to clear up, quote, was only trying to, quote, clear up the mess he inherited from Boris Johnson, end quote, and obviously Liz Truss as well, I guess you could argue, said the ex-minister, urging Tory MPs to let him get on with it. For some reason, the Tories don't understand, or at least pretend to not understand, that this mess was created by Brexit. They had no cross-community consent for Brexit or the protocol. Now they're trying to pass this bill without cross-community consent. Is there any cross-community consent for the removal of the protocol or for the DUP 7 test? Because I can guarantee you the nationalist community does not back this stuff. In a stark message to the Conservative dissidents, Mr Duncan said, quote, it's very clear, it's very simple. Get real or die. Sunak must be given the space to fix it without being briefed against or attacked by those who created the problem in the first place, end quote. And then he says, quote, all they will do is make more and more people vote Labour. It will be an act of suicidal treachery, end quote, the Tory grandee added. And this is the level the Tory party is at, a bunch of self-serving politicians who know the game is almost up. They're looking to loot whatever they can. For some of them, the Tory party was just a vessel to get what they wanted. Chances are the Tory party will lose the next election, so they're going to slash and burn the party and the country. Tobias Ellwood, the Tory Defence Select Committee chair, told The Independent that Johnson could scupper the party's election prospects by trying to undermine Mr Sunak, saying, quote, every headline the public reads of Johnson intentionally undermining Sunak results in a few more Tory seats lost, end quote. And that's what his obsession is, rather than, you know, the dangers it will be to Northern Ireland. To be fair to Tobias Ellwood, he did say the UK needs to look at rejoining the single market, even though I've debunked why that can't happen, or the difficulties around that. At least he's not a complete moron. And I'm not sure it's the case that, I don't think most people are interested in the protocol. I don't think people in Great Britain really read about the protocol that much or care about it. I don't think they really care about the inner workings of the Tory party that much. I think they do care when things start going wrong, when the cost of living is so high, amongst other things. I think they care then when the Tory party isn't focusing on the bread and butter issues. But it does show you that this party is split. You might even have some Brexiteers who want to back the protocol because they know the danger they're in. They're messing around with really dangerous people in Northern Ireland. On the other side, you have Eurosceptics and the ERG lunatics who want mass deregulation and have no care about the Good Friday Agreement, who want the UK completely out of the single market. Northern Ireland is part of the single market for goods because of this is their ideology. The senior backbencher added, quote, "If Johnson persists, he could easily be accused of deliberately scuppering our election prospects for personal gain. This is not the standard of statecraft our party or the nation admires or needs," end quote. This is the standard of statecraft for the Tory party. You have a party built on personal gain that was ready to renege on a treaty after agreeing to it so they could win an election. You had Johnson and others happy to undermine Cameron and May. The 1922 committee ready to change the rules on leadership races when they lost votes. When Theresa May won her leadership contest, they said, if you don't resign, we'll change the rules. I wouldn't be surprised if they did similar things to Johnson as well. Maybe this person is blind to the last 6 years. I'm not. This is a party built on self-interest, personal greed. Especially when you look at the decisions they made regarding the coronavirus and the contracts they handed out. This is not a party that's built in the interests of the country. This is a party in the interest of their donors and themselves. And the problem is now their ideology. The Eurosceptic wing, the UKIP wing, has infected their party to the point where they don't know what they want. They're so torn now on focusing on the next election, focusing on taking, Northern Ireland out of the single market against the will of the nationalist community and other people kind of between the nationalist and the unionist communities. It's just madness what's happened now. And this person, whoever this person is being quoted here, this person's blind to what's happened over the last 6 years. Absolutely blind. Madness. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.